Good morning, everyone. Right, so it's a privilege, to moderate this topic, financial revolution, how tech, innovation, and the chaos, how the CFOs are navigating in these difficult situations. So, traditionally, the CFOs or the head of finance, they are more towards, as a conscious keeper of the finance, right? But now, from last so many years, the role of CFOs are moving from conscious keeper or gatekeeper to a strategic leader. On one side, if you'll see, there are always changes in terms of, we'll see the financial 2008 financial crisis, if we'll see the COVID crisis, right? And then now the automation, AI, things are moving. But on the other side, if you'll see the CFOs or the organization, they are navigating through all the challenges. So now let's see how practically on the ground, how the CFOs are navigating and the role is moving towards making the organization more agile and moving to a direction where they can navigate in terms of chaos, disruptions, supply chains disruptions, forex volatility, and other uncertainties. So, Narayan, if I'll start with you, how's the CFO's role evolving from traditional finance gatekeeper to strategic leader, and how you approach decision making in times of uncertainties and disruptions?
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. So, very good morning to everyone. So, very quickly, Deepak clearly mentioned that the finance roles have moved away from just a finance stewardship to strategic co-pilot to the not only CXOs, but even everybody else, not only CEOs, but being a strategic co-pilot to everyone in the organization. So very clearly what I see, Deepak, is that the role of finance has significantly changed. Like, just for example, I'm pretty sure many in this room are aware of it. Earlier we were more backward looking, more about what is the single source of truth and what is the actual financials. But now finance is actively participating and in working towards anticipation in the future of the business, both in top line and bottom line. So one big role change which has happened is that finance is actively looking forward looking as well and has started predicting and anticipating what the business looks like. That is one. Second, very clearly, if we see that earlier finance was more into a silos or was individual function driven, more about controllership, treasury, taxation, all those subject matter experts. But today finance does a lot of collaboration with each stakeholder across the organization. Be it, one thing which I keep on saying my team, finance is the only function in an organization which has got visibility of end to end. Starting from procurement to production to customer relationship to sales to bottom line to investments, resource allocation, everywhere, R&D, innovation, everywhere, even digital strategy, everywhere finance plays a very key role. So I always say that if finance, all the finance colleagues, if they come together, then they know the whole organization in and out and with a lot of data. So we have to move, and we have moved away from being silo function to a more collaborative function. Now coming to, in terms of uncertainty, very clearly what we keep on working is doing lots of scenario analysis, doing lots of what if analysis, understanding what can go wrong, have in every given point of time balance both risk and opportunities, and have 3-4 scenarios available with us which can help us to decide and trigger. One very important thing which has finance in times of uncertainty is very clear is high bias for action. Every time, it's a very famous saying, 80% is data, 20% is gut. But with a strong governance, with a strong freedom within framework, you define the rules, and within those rules, you have the freedom to operate. You take very quick bias for action. Those are the things which help. So at the end of the day, finance has moved way ahead than only being a conscious keeper or a controller or finance stewardship to a partner of growth which is competitive, profitable, responsible, and sustainable in the organization.
Right, right. So, Ryan, if you can just share your thoughts, how you see and uh, in your current organization, what kind of a role you are playing.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. So I think Narayan covered it very well. Of course, there are a few points which have evolved. Gone are the days where the CFOs were expected to only be control and compliance gatekeepers, right? Now there is a larger expectation. With that, the scope has increased. A lot of people are now expected not only to just look at control and compliance aspects, but also look at business partnering, also look at, let's say, technology driven initiatives, right? So these are some things which have evolved over time. I think also the capabilities of data and data analytics have improved a lot, right? With that, we have a lot of data at our behest to kind of analyze and try kind of throw out more analytical insights, right? So that's where the CFO's role has also evolved in terms of throwing more valuable insights to the table, right? Another angle, if you see, is probably today's CFO is also supposed to balance the risk and resilience approach, right? They are expected to kind of balance the approach in terms of the short-term risk with the long-term gains, right? So that's something where earlier it was not in probably the scope of the CFO, and he was expected to kind of run status quo, right? And also I think as an extension to that concept, a lot of cross-functional collaboration has also evolved, right? Today, like Narayan said, I think the CFOs are not expected to work in silos, right? They're all of them are expected to kind of collaborate with each and every function, and not just the business, right? But also the HR function, your IT function. How do you kind of get in, the benefits of technology into your entire domain, right? And then there's the fifth aspect, which is there of the shareholder kind of view, right? Where you balance all the interest of your shareholder, right? Each of the stakeholders and the shareholders in your organization have different interests, like including your employees, your customers, your external consultants that you have, right? So how do you kind of balance that is important in terms of managing the long-term viability of your organization. So important thing is, I think, probably also looking at how do you manage your board interest, right? When you come to, the company versus the board, obviously the board is looking for a longer term view, a longer term, insight onto that, right? So how do you bring that into, the overall overview when you're kind of, explaining your financials? Because they are not just interested in numbers, right? Today's board is more on a strategic view. How do you see yourself in terms of that, right? A very common question which all of us ask in interviews, right? That's a very common question which comes up, in the board as well, that to say, how do you see the organization panning out in the next few years, right? So that's where, the focus has evolved. And I think, it has encompassed a larger scope than where we were, few years ago.
No, I think great insight. So if like you have summarized very well, and if I see the role of CFO, earlier it was more from the value protection, and then this evolved to the value appreciation. Now it's moving towards the value multiplication. Right. So again, if we'll move to the technology, because John Maxwell mentioned that life is a matter of choice, and every choice we make us, right? And if we may extend the choice of today, will make the organization of tomorrow. So now there is a situation of like which we called as a paradox of choice. So if we'll see the where there is a technology gaps, right, we face today. So Anil, if I'll ask your thought, how you are prioritizing your investment in AI, automation, and data analytics to drive the innovation and the growth.
Good morning to all of you. I think when we talk about technology, the first thing comes that what does technology do, or what does the technology use? Basically the data. The input comes by way of data and the talent. So these two things if one is to focus, and let me focus first on the data part. organizations have many different data sources which are fragmented and stored in various applications. And that is where probably organization is deprived of the insights which data should provide in terms of decision making, and also looking at how things need to move. So the biggest gap, if one has to look at it, the quality of data and the fragmentation of data or the governance of data, all three put together has an impact on the gaps which organization sees. When it comes to now using the newer avenues of investment to fulfill this gap, which could be financial data driven or non-financial data driven, the fact remains is there are newer technologies like AI, automation, will help in terms of analyzing things in a better way, using financial and non-financial data, putting together, getting insights from the predictive analysis, and also looking at how things can be done in timely manner, or what are the early warnings are there. Through AI, one can see that and take corrective actions based on the insights. Those would be the one part which will get prioritization in terms of investment. The second part which uses that information, which is talent. I think team also has to be strengthened. The skill sets of the team also has to be strengthened. The unlearn and relearn of relearning of new things, newer technologies, and keeping pace with that probably needs to be prioritized. That's where the investment needs to be done, so that while there are systems which will provide insights, people are able to use those insights for decision making and also taking organization forward. That's where probably I would say the investment focus has to be. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Pooja, if you can share your thought on this subject.
Thank you. I totally agree with what Aneel said. Data is the new oil. But beyond that, one major area where the industry, when it comes to paints, sees a huge potential is in innovation. There are a lot of products which are waiting to be discovered, innovated. For example, there's a lot on self-healing and resistant paints. These are all graphene-based products. There's a lot on interactive walls that the customers expect. So a large part of the technological gap can be fulfilled by looking at technologies which can make the production at mass for these, and at the same time cost-effective. Another area that we see where technology can really add in terms of potential is the application. So we have a lot of areas where the surface needs to be prepared. For example, if you're painting a ship at the hull level, or say an example of a metro city where most of the buildings are 60 meters or higher. It's very difficult and risky to send people up there, and there's a large amount of human risk is involved in that. So what we try to look at is how can robotics help in those areas and improve our efficiency and improve our capacity. Those are the areas that we are looking at from a product innovation and application point of view. Of course, there's never enough addition to what technology can do in efficient manufacturing. Most of the factories that we have, and this applies to all industries across, have a huge potential in terms of how technology can add value to efficient manufacturing, improve the downtimes which can add back to the P&L. Those are certain things where we see there's a huge investment which should go up. On the financial operations side, I think Aneel already covered it, so I wouldn't want to talk about that in terms of repetition, but RPA, AI and analytics is where we really see a huge investment from our end. In fact, we are piloting in a lot of RPA products which can improve life for our people, specifically from the point of view of making them have a better view of what they want to do. So that's where I see majority investment going up.
Right. So just to extend this point, now there are a lot of tools which is available in terms of our expense management, in terms of forex management. Then we are also building some BI tools to get more data insights, right? So if I'll just ask, like, how do you see in terms of, because the data is available, now as a CFO or the head of finance, like how much you emphasize on the data and then your instinct? If anyone, you can just share your thought. Ryan, if I'll start with you.
Okay, so I think this is something which we did in my previous organization, right? In terms of analyzing the data, right? So there is obviously a tool called SAP Concur, right? And that's where as simple small things like, let's say, GL classification, right? In those times, what we used to do was we used to, obviously, because you have like this global finance services team which is there, right? A lot of them do the transaction based on their understanding of the transaction, right? Which essentially means that what gets recorded is basis their understanding, right? So while you may have two transactions which essentially have the same essence, have the same transaction, right? But you will end up classifying them in two different GLs, right? So that's what we did as a simple process to kind of streamline the GL, to say that, if this is the expenditure that is coming out, right, it automatically gets classified to that GL, right? A simple thing like that, probably helped us streamline the entire process of accounting, right? Gave us better visibility on, what are the spends, right? And that's how we kind of improved our, overall innovation journey, right? The second thing that we did was in terms of the budgeting and expensing tool, right? A lot of people, think budgeting process is more a manual process, right? But I think we should spend more time on the analytics of the budget and the long-range planning that we do, rather than in the processing of it, right? So what we did was we implemented the entire budgeting and expensing tool, right, which helped us automate the entire journey, right? A third example, and more relevant to the pharma space, right, is something that we did on the business side of things, right? So today when you go to a pharma company, the face of the pharma company is your medical representative, right? When they go into the market, they are not technical jargons, they are not medical, enthusiasts, right? But obviously when the doctor has certain questions to them, they are expected to answer them, right? So what we did was we created a tool, right? A tool that basically helps them answer the questions of the doctor itself, right? So when they go to the doctor and the doctor asks them any questions on the molecules, right, they are able to kind of directly answer them without any, hesitation, without any Googling, right? So that was something which, gave us impetus. We did, one round of implementation, and it turned out to be a success in terms of, answering each and every question of the doctor. So I think these are some ways where, if we are able to, as, finance professionals, innovate and, collaborate better, I think it would definitely lead us onward to the technological journey.
Sure. Anilji, if you want to share.
Sure, I would add to that. In fact, especially coming to our logistic industry, if one is to look at it, there are a lot more use cases, applications, which provides not only efficiency but also improves productivity of the people. Like case in example, because we have a large number of blue collar employees and they travel. So obviously employee reimbursement point of view, we made it automated tool through which up to certain limits, no question asked, system only can approve, and then the reimbursement can go early morning next day. Like whatever is spent during the day, gets punched in by evening, next day morning, AI checks it and posts it, and by 9:30 everybody gets credit of the expense which was incurred yesterday. So that's how one way of looking at it. Second use case which you have is looking at, since we have geographical presence across country, so there are multiple variables in the country which plays out on per day sale. So we try and look at it forecasting way of that, what is likely sale for this month. What we do is, looking at each location's situation, we have a tool which projects everyday sale and what is likely in revenue for the month end. That's to know where we are in terms of what was budget versus where we are likely to end. And which takes into account all the physical happenings at the location, like somewhere you have burn, somewhere you have a flood, somewhere you have a political situation. So all that is taken into account, and impact of that is built in forecasting of the sale for the month. That's second use case. Third use case, which is more prevalent, is on operational efficiency side. You look at, use the way the distribution or the shipment delivery has to happen for the day. The entire route mapping is done by a tool, which ensures that there's a better productivity from the vehicle and from the employee, so that one, it takes lesser time to deliver, and at the same time there are more deliveries a vehicle can do. So all these kind of things helps, in terms of ensuring that you are efficient, you are ensuring that customers get the deliveries faster, at the same time organization benefits from that efficiency.
Great, great. So now we touch upon how the CFO's roles are evolving, and then we touch upon on the technology bit. So if I'll move to the talent part, because again the technology is like the enabler, right? But ultimately what important is the process and the people. So what Steve Jobs said is that great things are never done individually. They are always done by teams. So the importance of talent development in finance cannot be underemphasized. So Narayan, if I'll start with you, how do you see the CFO's role in fostering a culture of innovation and talent development within the finance function to support the digital transformation?
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. So first of all, as a CFOs or as finance heads of our functions, very important is that we are not only responsible for the financial outcome of the organization, we are also cultural architect of the organization. Because like I mentioned earlier, finance touches every sphere of the organization, so it's important that we set the right culture in the organization. And who better than us, people who work with us in finance very closely, they become those change agents. So hence, talent and innovation are very critical part of the same coin. Without innovation, you can't have a talent, and without talent, you can't have an innovation. So very quickly, if I have to mention you, is that from talent perspective, what I always say is that how can we redefine the role? How can we train the capability, improve the capability of our colleagues? So just for example, in one of my stints earlier, I had as a CFO, I had changed roles of all my direct reportees at one go. How did that help? Whom all it did help? It helped the organization because you had a backup for everyone. It helped the colleagues who were reporting to me. They were now expanding their experience, because at the end of the day, experience is what matters in the industry. So somebody who was doing controllership role for almost 12 years of his career, I moved him to a business finance role. I moved taxation guys, direct taxation and indirect taxation, young talents, into business finance roles and vice versa. So what happens is that at the end of the day, we have to keep on seeing how we are enabling our talent to have a more wider experience. I am a product of that, because in my first 11 years of career, I did 7 roles in the same company. So it's very important we enable, so like there is a very famous in HR, 70-20-10 rule. 70 is on-job training. So we have to expose people to get variety of experience. So throughout last 2 decades in my career, whenever I had a team reporting, I ensure that I'm shifting people from one role to the other and developing the capability of that individual, as well as developing a resilience for the organization for that talent. That's one. Second, very clearly is, I'm a firm believer, which I keep on saying, learning curve is the only earning curve. So till everybody is learning, they are earning. And hence, I ensure that everybody in the teams are having the right exposure and are having the right attitude to learn. They have the agility to learn and do new things. Just for example, in one of my stints, I've done global commodity hedging. And to be candid, when I took that role, I didn't even knew about commodity hedging, instead of only what I've studied in CA. So, but that on-job training gave me a lot of confidence in risk management. So similarly, it's very important that we keep on giving our teams experience and opportunity to learn, to build their talent pipeline. That's second. Third, very important is lead by example. Means how to collaborate with teams, how to engage and influence. One thing which AI can't do ever, which I keep on saying my team, automation and AI can't do ever, is influencing the stakeholders to do the right things for the organization. A production guy will always look into maximizing production. A sales guy will always look into maximizing the sales irrespective of the credit limits. A purchase guy will always look into having right inventory so that there is no stockouts. But it's the finance which connects dots across the organization. R&D guy, he will be focusing on new projects irrespective whether demands exist for that product or not. So finance is that connecting dots. So we have to lead by example by helping our teams understand how finance connect dots between different functions and becoming that connector which helps the organization to achieve the end objective which its stakeholders are desiring. So I would say talent management is the most important thing. And I would like to end with one last statement which I always tell. Nobody comes to the office with the intent to screw up his boss or screw up his work. Nobody has, it's not that he doesn't know or he doesn't want to do. It's always the person may be in the wrong bus or in the wrong seat or in the wrong time. We have to help him to find his right bus, right seat, and at the right time. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Narayan. What you mentioned in the last sentence is that every organization needs the right people at the right place in your bus, right? So this is the way you can have a right balance in your team. And then as a function head, we also need to give the exposure to our team so that they can grow, and then we have a proper succession planning and then everything in place. Ryan, if I'll ask on the same topic, like how do you see the talent and the culture, how you want to drive in your organization?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I think taking a lead, from what Narayan said, I think, couple of points, right? One is it's important to inculcate the culture of, control to innovation. I think that's the first step to kind of getting that out of the box thinking from individuals, right? You have to obviously encourage your team to kind of do something different. If they're doing, let's say, a business finance role, right? How do you kind of get technology to kind of better that role? That's the first aspect, I would say. Second thing is always, send across the message and communicate, saying that it's important to learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? And this process is like a cycler journey, right? In terms of you have to learn, but you have to also unlearn at points in time, right? Because if you come with a preconceived notion that, this is the best way of doing it, you will never think something better, right? So it's always important to kind of unlearn what you've learned, right? And then, get in a better perspective than what you had inculcated into your team. The third thing is, I think in terms of job rotation, I think it's a very, very valid point. Today's, generation, right? The Gen Z, the way we call it, right? Is looking for something different even in a year, right? Obviously, I'm not saying go and change people's roles like in a year time, right? But how do you get that difference in the role in a year's time, right? Simple things like, let's say, the first year of the role, you should expect them to do the transactional bit of things, right? In the second thing, I think you should set the expectation very clear in terms of getting that difference in the role and what's the value addition to the business, right? So that's where, that person will be able to build in that extra effort and that extra, enthusiasm to pull through that role. The fourth thing is, I think it's important also to get different exposure, right? Right. Somebody who's doing a business finance role for 5 years, a lot of people do not want to move into specific roles, right? Gone are the days where people want to do a generic taxation role or an audit role or an accounting role, right? But how do you kind of generate that interest for people is important, right? In terms of, let's say, when you even give them a perspective of the role, you tell them, how does it help you to grow as a finance leader, right? It's important to explain that journey to the individual, because today, a lot of people, when they do a business finance role or when they do an M&A role, okay, or when they do an equity analyst role, they're very contented with that role, right? Because all of that thing is very flowery, everything is very good and very exciting, right? But when they come to the other side of the roles, and not to, demean any particular role, right? But when they come to the other side of, let's say, an accounting or a traditional taxation role, they find it very dread, right? So how do you kind of, explain to them that that's the journey which you will have to go through if you want to be a finance leader or a CFO, right? So explaining that concept, communicating it in the right sense, I think will always be beneficial to the individual, and he will take it in a more positive sense, right? The fourth and the last thing is what I would like to say is in terms of building a, conscious effort to continuous improvement, right? Today, a lot of us think that, what we've done is the best we've done, right? Always set a higher benchmark for your team in terms of, doesn't matter, if they're not able to kind of, let's say, or they are able to achieve even 60% of what you've expected, right? But at least they are doing an effort towards it, right? So always set that concept, set that communication very right, that you're expected to do better than what you have done in the previous day and in the next day, right? So that if you keep, inculcating that culture, I think it will work towards a positive mindset.
Right, right. Narayan.
Yeah. Just couple of more points, important points is that. So what as a team I have always been doing, and this is important, I thought I should share, is that besides their core job, I always create a project around, Arvind is there, he knows. I create a project of around 6 different verticals. One is on growth, one is on profitability, third would be on working capital management, fourth would be on people, fifth would be on controls and compliance, and sixth would be on training and development. So if say I have a team of 60 people, so I will, from different teams in finance, I will ensure that each one of those are leading are part of one of the pillars. So what happens is that, so a team which is working on controls and compliance, there would be people from things which are beyond controls, and there would be people from business finance. They would be also participating. There would be a team on working capital. There, besides business finance, even and treasury team, even taxation team would be part of it. So what helps it is that it helps to take their level up, because then they are not limited to their own scope of work, but they know what has to be done. So something like in finance, I will have a vertical of people management, which would be working on hiring right talent, helping people to do T&D, having mandatory leaves being taken, and all those things, having programs of cultural engagement within the finance pattern. So that's how you build more resilient teams, where teams are getting exposure, not only on job, but by even doing projects beyond their core job to drive those areas of learning.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add one more point, right? So I think it's also important to have a good business collaboration, right? When you have young individuals in your team, encourage them to visit the market, right? When I joined, probably this organization, I realized that there was a very big disconnect between a finance team and between the business team, right? In terms of them not knowing how a medical representative would go on the ground, meet the doctor, understand his requirements, right? So we kind of gotten this concept where at least, once in a quarter, one individual from the business finance team will go and make it a point to kind of, visit with the medical representative, understand the business, that helped that person get a better outlook on the entire business, right? And in terms of, I think, setting the culture right, today as we have a lot of, Gen Zs and Gen Alphas into our team, right? It's important to kind of set that, culture very, very straight, right? A lot of people, it's important to kind of have getaways, in terms of, just doing a short trip to, let's say, a Lonavala, Khandala kind of a thing, right? Or even, let's say, for example, getting them to a dinner every month, right? Just to kind of bond and get that team support together, right? So that's what I had as a couple of more points.
No, you are absolutely right, because what you need in a team is that you have a bonding in a team, then you also have certain projects within the finance function and with the cross function, so that you will have a growth opportunities for your team, and then you also understand the kind of a potential you have in your team, right? Yeah, so moving to the next one, because as a finance leader, we also have a vision in terms of a long term, and then again, month on month, quarter on quarter, right? So then if I'll ask, if may I ask Pooja, like how do you balance the short-term financial discipline with a long-term strategic investment in technology, innovation, especially like in the uncertain market?
That's a great question. So when I talk about Yotun's strategy in terms of investment, it is very, very clear. We believe that first we draw up the long-term strategy, and every aspect of the short-term strategy is linked to, to the discipline of doing the short-term right to meet the long-term. And at the same time, we also have a fund which is created from the point of view of innovation. So innovation it's a non-negotiable. Apart from that, we also have a technology fund which is created for the must-haves. So when it comes to must-haves, it's really endearing to see that AI is one of the must-haves that we've classified rather than an experimental fund. So the idea is, from a long-term perspective, look at the next gen or what is going to be the disruptor, and see how this fits into the long-term plan. So for example, Jotun has a very clear policy and a goal that by 2030, we want to have 70% of our operations draw sustainable energy. So then what we do is, it's very beautiful how at a global level the strategy is drawn, and then at a local level in the countries, we've given our inputs and also draw our strategy elements from the global one. So what we do then back is look at how we can harness these goals, look at how technology can help us in these areas. And that is something which drives our short-term and long-term investment portfolio. Apart from that, the standard way of looking at what is the ROI, how is it going to be in terms of the payback, those financial metrics are definitely evaluated, and the board holds these very close. So for example, the way it is governed is at a local level, the board at Norway is also interested in knowing how are you allocating capital, what is your way of meeting the company standards, and then we also have certain thresholds in terms of how we want to play within that threshold. So that is what I feel gives a lot of structure to it. Apart from that, from a technology investment per se, we also have a lot of projects running in, and what we do is, rather than going all in, we allocate it in terms of sequential investments. So that builds a lot of interest. It also hooks in and it does allow us to experiment at the same time and also fulfill the expectations of ROI. I'm really happy to share that whatever AI investments that we've done and the technology investments that we've done in the past short term of 1.5 years, they've given us 3x returns, if nothing less than that. So that's where the power of convincing the board and at the same time looking at how this fits into your strategy plays a role in deciding where do you want to invest.
Great, great. Anilji, if you want to share on this, how do you balance the short term and the long term?
I think just adding to what Pooja said, there are two different perspectives one could look at, while I'm not saying that what she says, is also valid. One is that if one has to look at short-term goals obviously would be dependent on that how closely you can control and monitor those progresses and deliver on those. For long-term, I think a different lens, if I had to apply lens, two different lenses, short-term versus long-term could be a portfolio approach where one could look at it, how the scenario is playing out. We know that scenarios keep changing, business is very dynamic and those things are evolving. So given the business scenario, one can always accelerate investment into those avenues, or if it is not conducive for the investment, then you can take a pause or you can go a little slow on that. So that agility part helps you in deciding on long-term investment, because if you go with the market trend and maybe slightly, taking that into account, the way markets are behaving, that will help in prioritizing and getting better returns rather than just going ahead with the long-term what we have already decided. So agility in investment planning and decision making would help in getting a better returns.
Right, right. So as a CFO, one has to, in one hand we need to have a magnifying glass, and in one hand we need to have a telescope, right? Just to see how we are moving towards for our short-term goal and long-term goal. If I'll see the overall finance function, there are times when the company need to take some leapfrog jump, company need to move to a transformation journey, right? And then there are certain times where we have some crisis. So Narayan, if I'll ask, what strategy have you found effective for managing financial performance and stakeholder communication during the transformation or the crisis situation?
Thanks, Deepak. So, any transformation always involves three things: people, process, and technology. And I always say that technology is the easiest part, process is second most difficult, and changing behavior and changing culture is the most difficult part. You can have the best of technology, but if people don't use it, then it's as good as nothing. So, always we have to take care in any transformation journey, the people part of it. So, we have to collaborate and ensure that every key stakeholder, starting from without any grade or designation, is part of the project and owns that project for his own benefit. Now coming on to what are the strategies that we follow. So there are very simple, which I'm pretty sure everybody in this room follows. One is transparency. Have a very clear, transparent discussion with all the key stakeholders on the change management if it's a transformation, or even if it's a crisis. Have a very, very clear, transparent communication with all the key stakeholders who are required to know about it and who are participating, who will get impacted by that transformation or change impact, or crisis. Second is, we finance people it's very important, we have to be good storyteller. That storytelling is an art which I urge everyone in finance to learn, because we are more good at numbers rather than words. So it's very important that we start learning the art of storytelling. Because, and it's an art, why? Because even if a pin drops and we create like a nuclear bomb reaction, then also it's a challenge, and vice versa is also a challenge. To know when to make the right noise and when to make the right voice is very important. Because as finance, we should be knowing what is important and urgent and what is only important. So we have to have a fine balance of that and storytelling. The third important aspect, which the second part after transparency, the second part would be cadence. Having a regular cadence on discussions, having a regular cadence on where we stand against what we have aspired when the transformation journey began. Having measuring all the key KPIs which have been defined as part of the transformation journey. Because it's very easy, and let me be candid, I have led not less than 15-20 projects in my career, and I would say that every project will come with its surprises, its challenges, with its highs and lows. But we have to learn the art of enjoying the journey, because when we reach the destination, that wow effect is awesome. So whenever you feel low, whenever you feel down in any project of a transformation project or in any crisis, remember, the end of the tunnel is always bright. And that's what should keep all of us motivated, because the intent for us is right, that we want to make our organization big, greater and better. So if with that motive, there is no reason to feel when there are downs in project or crisis to be emotionally affected with it, and to ensure that we remain objective and ensure that we are driving the right actions to deliver that project or to mitigate the risk from the crisis.
Right. So, Ryan, if you just add on this, what Narayan mentioned.
Yeah, okay. So I think, yeah, very valid points. I think, when obviously when we are going through such turbulent times, it's important. One is obviously, like he said, right, very important to communicate very, very intensively, right? Because if you do not communicate the right intention, the people will get the wrong intention, right? That's the way I would always look at it, right? So it's important, to kind of tell them, what's going to be the next few days, next few months, how does it look for the company, not only to your external stakeholders, but also to your employees, right? When the company is going through such turbulent times, it's very easy for the employees to get discouraged and think that, okay, now, job cuts are the only option, right? So it's important for them to be reassured, that the company is doing its best to kind of get through that. The second thing is, I think, creating very, very important scenario planning analysis, right? Which is in terms of creating what would be the worst outcome, what would be the most realistic outcome, and what would be the most best outcome, right? It's important for you to kind of put all of these to the test, in terms of when you are looking at probably your strategy and your goal, important for you to have both these three pinpoints on your dashboard, right? The third thing is in terms of, not only evaluating the scenario planning analysis in terms of, these three scenarios that are there, but also creating multiple cuts of it, right? In terms of, let's say, one cut which says that, okay, if you were to cut certain costs, right, which are unnecessary, what would the P&L look like, right? What would the outlook look like? If you were to freeze certain capital projects that you're currently, pursuing, what would the organization look at, right? Because there is always a pro and a con to it, right? If you cut capital costs, obviously at the end of the day, your growth is restricted, right? So it's important to balance those priorities. And then obviously when, everything comes through and, you still feel that, no, you need to downsize your manpower. That is the third cut which you should look at, right? But obviously from the emotional aspect, from the, from the entire perspective of employees, I think it's always key to first try and do the first two things which are in your domain to kind of restrict the entire financial crunch, right? The next point is, I think, in terms of, looking at resilience as an approach. How do you bounce back, in trying times in terms of, when you're looking at cash is the king, right? Today, when we say, and in these kind of situations, you would like to preserve cash more than spend cash, right? So it's important for you to kind of analyze each of the investments that you have made or have made, and are they giving you the returns, right? Important for you to kind of have that ROI tracking, very, very frequent meets on what's the financial position looking like, right? It's important to kind of keep having these discussions day on day, right? I remember when, the COVID time was there, right? A lot of us had cadences every day, right? Because it was such a trying time for most of the companies, including, let's say, FMCGs and pharma companies. All of them were going through the grind, right? And it was important for them to kind of monitor it very closely. So it's important for us to kind of keep monitoring it day by day, right? And that's how we'll be able to kind of get through this entire situation, right? And the last point probably, is in terms of, collaboration, right? It's not just the finance standpoint or the financial acumen that will get you through, right? It's the cross-functional collaboration that will get you through. So it's important for you to have, HR, finance, IT, operations, all on the same wavelength, right? So if you're able to kind of, get their thoughts together, I believe definitely you will be able to, get to your longer goal set of, let's say, preserving cash and, looking at outlooks at a more positive manner. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Pooja, if you want to add.
Yeah, I think both of them have added in a lot of valid points. One thing out of experience that we've seen both in 0 to 1 companies and in large companies is that no amount of communication is over communication. So especially in stressed times, the more you communicate, the more you reassure people of the fact that things are fine, it will work out at the end of the day.
Aneel,
Maybe not taking too much time. In the interest of time, I'll just say one-liner. Start getting comfort in discomfort. Because times are not going to be way it used to be earlier. Times are challenging, times are changing, evolving. Challenges are only increasing. So what one needs to get used to is get comfort in discomfort.
True, true, true. So what Narayan you mentioned is that in any transformation journey, what are the three important pieces that the technology, process, and then the people, right? So when you are moving towards a transformation journey or there are certain crises, then I think what important is that it's more important that we develop the additional trust with all the stakeholders and we have a solution oriented approach. Now, as we are moving to our end, so I'll open the floor for any questions to our esteemed panelist.
Sir, one or two points I just want to add. My thought. So Gambhir Saab, you and me, I think last year we were in one of the panel together.
Sorry, you
So-
can take the mic a bit closer.
Sorry. Gambhir Saab, you and me were together in one of the panel last year. Time was bad, is bad, will be bad. Market was bad, is bad, will be bad. Promise what you can deliver and then deliver what you promised. Very clearly. Saraf Saab, have I made a wrong statement, Narayan ji? Have I made a wrong statement? No, I can't hear you properly. Okay, I said time was bad, is bad, will be bad. Promise what you can deliver and then deliver what you promised. If this mantra will use, then the life will be easy. Secondly, I just want to understand from all of you who are sitting here, have you seen any CEO till date who is B in electrical, electronics, communication, civil, mechanical, IT? But from CFO, we expect he should know accounting, finance, tax, logistics. Why? Are we Bhagwan Vishnu Avatar? No, sir. This is a wrong expectation setting. What I feel is that there is an orchestra where there are a lot of musicians are sitting, they are expert in their instruments. But there is a conductor standing in front of them who moves a stick and all of a sudden symphony comes out. This is a role, according to me, the CFO has to play. He should know which stick, long or short, and how to move that stick so that the organizational symphony can come out. We can use very, very nice words. I like your word of storytelling, Narayan sir. This is very important for CFOs. They should know how to do this storytelling. Because these stakeholders, regulators, everybody has recognized that finance has a big role to play and an independent role to play. That's why now CFOs are part of the board, if not as a director, but as a key function. And they have to answer board everything and then also has to sign one paper of everything is all right. So the whole world has put this responsibility on us. We were very good partners to the CEO. Now time comes we have to be trustees of our stakeholders also. Both roles has to be played. It is not an easy task. I can tell you, for the last 25 years, I'm playing between government and private. I know what happens. But during the day, I can share all those nonsense things which have occurred to me or I have faced. I'm involved in the infra projects actually. Last thing on the people side, people have a lot of expectation. But where is the aspiration? Boss, if I am giving you 1 crore of salary per year, you are supposed to return back 3 crores or 4 crores to me. Let us set a time frame. 2 years, 3 years. If you are on a track, very good. If you are not on the track, sorry. If my person says customer is not accepting, this is happening, that is happening, I said my grandmother can do this business. If I have to agree to everybody's proposal, why I have kept you? See, I'm a very bad CFO, I can tell you. Because I demand performance from the people. I may be chief financial officer or chief performance officer or chief this officer, you can define any name, but demand performance. We have two type of peoples. One are which are 2 legs and 2 hands for us. Another set is which is brain with the heart. I am ready to listen brain with the heart, but 2 legs and 2 feet आएंगे जाएंगे मेरे बाकी लोग संभाल लेंगे. I am not bothered about the whole finance team.
Mr. Alok, in the interest of time, I'm very sorry.
Sure.
I must have to cut you off.
I'll cut short, no issue.
Yes.
Thanks.
So, moving forward, let's keep the questionnaire session very open-ended. Let's keep the questions pretty direct. For people who are going to be providing insights, their time on the stage will come. So, let's keep the questions very open-intended. I am very sorry, ma'am. There is a keynote session post this, so I extremely apologize. If you're going to make it very quick, under a minute, we can do this. But this is going to be the last question because the next keynote is in a bit of a time schedule. So please make it very quick.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the valuable insights. Just one very quick question. I just want to know any innovative kind of thought process on the cost control part and the cash flow management. Any innovative aspects that you're thinking in these turbulent times?
So everywhere means starting from your RM, PM procurement, doing innovation in the packaging, doing improving the operational efficiency, how to yield the yield of the plant, how to do performance management of the field, like Ryan mentioned, very actively, how to play on the innovative side. So every aspect we keep on working. I can see you as I'm sitting here, there's a 23 projects which we are driving on different line items. How can we, not cost control, I don't use the word cost control, I use the cost efficiency. I look at the value creation. If I, like sir was mentioning, if I invest 1 rupee, if I get 10 rupees out of it, I'm ready to invest that 1 rupee. So return on investment, ROMI, all of the, so it's a whole gamut where we don't only look into cost control, but building cost efficiency and value creation and holding people accountable and responsible for those deliveries.
I think just one quick point. So I think while Narayan has covered it well, couple of things where you can look at is, let's say, can we do things better by doing it in-house versus doing it, externally, right? I think those come with a dual, pain and a advantage to it, right? So look at that thing. Apart from that, obviously there are, initiatives in terms of, you doing packaging initiatives, you doing raw material, alternate vendor developments in terms of that. Right, so those are certain things which you can look at, from a overall cost control perspective.
Last is automating the regular mundane job where you need people. How can you automate it and release their time to do more value creation work rather than doing mundane repetitive work?
Right, so just give you 1 or 2 example in terms of packaging. So in my previous organization, we were using certain bags, right? So the thought is that if we can reduce certain GSM, then this will give us the saving. In the current organization, for example, let's say we have a barrel where the tare weight is, let's say 7.5 kg, right? How we can reduce to 7.2, right? Without impacting any performance. We were filling, let's say 200 kg. Can we fill to, let's say 220 kg, 210 kg? So I think little bit here and there, I think we need to see from all the angles and bring the efficiency.
Sure. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much to all the panelists. You truly have set the stage for the day. Thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of the 23rd edition. Again, in the interest of time, I'm very sorry. I will have to keep the questions short. So let's just have a group photo before they leave. A huge round of applause for them, guys.